Hello everyone and welcome to the Henchman's Memoirs. This week on our Megadungeon review, we are taking a look at the Abomination Vaults for 5th edition. This was originally a adventure path for the Pathfinder role-playing game, I think 2nd edition, but when they released it earlier this year for 5th edition, I was right at the front of the pre-order line because they marketed this as a horror-themed Megadungeon. And if you know anything about the Henchmen, you know those are two of my favorite buzzwords. I love Ravenloft campaigns, I love Megadungeons, and so I pre-ordered this right away. We're going to look through it, see if it might be right for your group by taking a look at some of the chapters and giving you an overview of what happens in this adventure. So the 5th edition version here starts off with a little bit of background telling us about this dungeon. You can see here, you have a nice cutaway of the dungeon. At the top, on the ground level, is basically a lighthouse. All right, and the ground ruins here are kind of around the base of this lighthouse, and then this sort of tunnel, this sort of well, goes all the way down through all the levels of the Megadungeon, and the party can keep encountering it as they work their way through the dungeon. So the backstory is that there was this witch named Belcora, and she built this thing 500 years ago and was working towards completing it. It's actually like a super weapon that she planned to use against the nearby town of Absalom, when a group of 4 adventurers called the Rose Guard came out to stop her. There was a big epic fight here at this top level, and the Rose Guard managed to defeat Belcora, but their thief, Otari, was killed in the process and lost. So the adventurers decided to retire from adventuring, and they founded the small town that they named after their thief, the town of Otari. So here we have the map of Otari. It's a little waterfront fishing and logging town, and we can see that the Gauntlight Keep, which is the top of the Megadungeon, is not far away, although no one in town and no one involved in the adventure at first knows that there's a Megadungeon at all. The players might know that you're running them through a Megadungeon because you might pitch this whole campaign to them as a Megadungeon, but their characters are just going to know about these ruins out in the Fog Fen. So the mysterious thing about these is you have a lighthouse here that is, as we can see, miles from the coast. Right, so it's an anomaly to begin with, but for 500 years it's been out there and, you know, just the source of rumors and stuff, but not really causing anybody any trouble. Until recently, weird lights have been visible at the top of the lighthouse from the town. So the players arrive in Otari, or they can be from Otari, and they're going to meet some interesting NPCs. There's good write-ups here on some of these people, and some of them are going to send the party in with additional quest hooks. Some of them want things out of the dungeon, or this is the local smuggling queen and thieves guild leader. She's got some followers who are there in the dungeon. A local barkeep, her son is missing, and she wants help figuring out what happened to him. But Rin Silvixny is the one who's actually going to send the party on the initial quest to go to the Gauntlight and see what's causing these weird lights. So chapter 1, A Light in the Fog, begins with the actual above ground ruin. The party's going to show up in here. This level is particularly well written. It's got some excellent encounters in it, and they're going to encounter these Mitflits here at the first level. These are kind of gremlins that the writers of Pathfinders like to use a lot. The thing you're going to find in this dungeon, although there are 5th edition stats in the back for all of the monsters that you're going to encounter, there's a lot more sort of Galarian World of Lost Omens signature monsters in this particular adventure than you would find from a third-party publisher, a different third-party publisher, or from Wizards of the Coast. So the thing about Mitflits is they get along real well with bugs and arthropods of all kinds. So as the party goes around here, they're going to encounter some of their buggy servants and minions. They have a chance to make friends with Boss Scrog and possibly realize that he's more of a comic relief character than a real threat. And they have a chance to explore the lighthouse itself and start to get an idea that the real problems lie deeper underneath the dungeon. So this adventure also has a whole bunch of Will-O-Wisp variants, which I personally liked because I've just always thought that Will-O-the-Wisps were cool monsters. So as the party starts to realize that the problems lie deeper down and they start trying to find a way to get deeper into the dungeon, when they return to town to resupply or level up or explain what they've found so far, the light from the lighthouse is going to sweep out and hit the town and actually bring the zombies in Otari's graveyard to life, and they're going to start attacking people in the town. And this sort of crab monster thing is going to be teleported into town also and be threatening people. So players have a chance to see that this is a clear and present danger to the town, and they have reasons to hurry back to the Gauntlet and keep exploring before another sort of attack like this happens. And this is as good a point as any to point out one thing that this adventure does very, very well is give the players opportunities to return to town, complete a quest, gather more information, find out what's going on, and then return to the dungeon to keep exploring on sort of a new level, not just of the dungeon, but to feel like the quest is making forward progress. In my video about how to make a Megadungeon work, I talk about this idea, and this dungeon is a good example of the writers really building that into the dungeon to begin with. The next level of the dungeon down has Morlocks. The Morlocks and Mitflits don't get along and are kind of at war, so the party can side with the Mitflits against the Morlocks. And then they're going to encounter this Jabba the Hutt Medusa critter early on, which is an example of flesh warping. So it's a good sort of forewarning of things that are going to come later in the dungeon, kind of give them a foreshadowing of things to come. The Morlock engineers that are making their own super crossbows and stuff. And the party is going to encounter a devil here, which is also more foreshadowing. And they're finally going to get to the next level. So Chapter 3, Call to the Canker. This is, I think, where her library is, and they're going to encounter a bunch of ghouls on this level, which is good stuff. Another devil, which is more foreshadowing, some violet fungus, some sort of typical dungeon monsters that you would want to see, but this is mostly the undead level. There's a ghost here. But what I noticed, Long Dream the Dead is the next level down, and where the party's going to come across their first check, where they can't keep going deeper into the dungeon. What I noticed is, even though they were using some good horror-themed monsters, there's really not a lot of horror feel to the adventure itself. Yes, there are ghouls a little later, the flesh warps, there's an opportunity for some sort of body horror. There's devils, which is always an opportunity for kind of the fear of torture and evisceration and all this kind of stuff. But the book doesn't really lean into any of those things. It really just reads to me like a straight-ahead, high fantasy, Forgotten Realms kind of adventure. It does not feel to me like it delivers on the promise of being horror-themed, but your mileage may vary. They do, on this level, encounter a worm that walks. This is one of the worst art pieces I've seen for a worm that walks. I think it's a really cool monster, and I've seen a lot of really cool art for it, but that is definitely not an example. But they also find this guy who is the bartender's son, who's been captured, and he's being used to sort of power the gauntlet beam that raised all those undead. So the party can defeat him and defeat his chain devil and crawling hands. But they come across their first sort of check. I think what really happened here is this is the end of book 1 and the end of what was designed by the first designer. And so they wanted to create this sort of roadblock here where the adventure feels like it comes to an end, and then the party needs to return to town and do some extra adventuring before they can go any further. So they do see the ghost of Otari. Okay, he's shown here on the cover, and they can actually encounter his ghost, and he will start to give them some hints and help as far as how to proceed through the dungeon, which I thought was really clever. But they can't go any further until they get through this spectral seal, which is a very video gamey, you can't go any further, you have to return to town and gather these plot coupons, these quest items, and bring them all back here so you can break the seal and keep going deeper into the dungeon. So returning to town, they're going to come across Carmen Rajani, who is a descendant of the paladin of this group, and her sword, which is one of the 4 magic items they need to proceed into the dungeon, he's actually going to steal it and try to claim it for himself because he feels like it should be his and he should be the mayor of the town. The actual mayor of the town, in the meantime, who I think has the holy symbol maybe that they need, they're going to start to get some hints that his daughter is being psychically harassed, like in her nightmares and stuff, by something that they're going to learn later is deeper in the dungeon. So we're getting more sort of side quests that take us as we're in the dungeon trying to do other things. But there are some fun NPC interactions and kind of deepening things with people in the town before they can return and start to go into the next level. So again, this next level, we've got a poltergeist, we've got some shadows and things that, could fit into a horror-themed adventure, Skeletal Hulk, but they're just not really presented in a particularly horrific way. Then you get to level 6. Level 6 is the beginnings of the sort of the flesh warping part of the dungeon. But first, they want you to come to this bar, which is sort of a tavern for people who live in the dungeon, and get into a battle of the bands with the house band at the tavern. When I read this, it just doesn't really seem to fit with the kind of adventures that I usually run. Doesn't mean that it can't be good, but it does mean that it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't fit as far as I'm concerned. But again, your mileage may vary. This is the first level where you start to meet these Sugathi guys. That is also pictured on the cover in a very horrific way. These guys are sort of a Cthulhu elder race / fungi from Yuggoth, aliens that come to experiment on people and so forth, and could be a good element of a horror-themed adventure if you kind of pump that up. This art of how they flesh warped this guy looks more like something out of a comic book than something really scary to me, but it's my own personal opinion. I didn't get enough of an explanation of all these people that are in the dungeon hanging out, having beers, like where they came from and how much of the dungeon they know. And, if you ask them to draw you maps of the next level, like how much, a lot of that is kind of left out. And I feel like that could be important for, for running the dungeon. But as I said, they don't really play into the body horror aspects of the whole, these are flesh warpers. Then we get to the next level where we run into another check. So here we start to really lean into the devils. The guys over at Paizo really like the idea that devils are obsessed with contracts and following the rules and so forth. So although you do get to fight a few devils on this level, the real focus is finding out what their contract is with Belcora and how you can break it and how you can get them to let you go past, so on and so forth. Not very horror, but it is interesting. It's a nice change of pace. And what they actually try to do is they make it so that this guy, who you may have locked horns with earlier, his soul can count as payment to get lower into the dungeon. So are you mad enough at this guy to sell his soul to the devil so that you can keep going? There's also a denizen of Leng that you can find on this level that is the one who is harassing the mayor's daughter. The Decaying Gardens is a big level of... So many Megadungeons love to have a big fungus garden type thing, and so you encounter typical monsters that you expect to encounter in the fungal gardens, right? I mean, very sort of what you would expect. There's a drow hunting party here, so you get to interact with some drow. On the Hunt is another level where Belcora used to have monsters fight each other, and she used to hunt for creatures to put into her experiments. So you encounter some more drow here, and you also encounter some dark folk, dark stalkers, dark striders, these guys, which I like in general. I like the lore behind them. And you also start to meet the Erdefin. This is another example of a monster that is much more common in the Pathfinder setting and much less common in any other 5e setting. So again, all the stats for them are in here. It's just whether you want to introduce whole new monster types and tell your character, oh yeah, you've heard of these things. These guys use these split swords, which to me seem completely impractical, but maybe magic makes it work. So once you fight this dragon and you get past the big layer of fungus and the hunting grounds, it's time to reach the final layer. So I think you're past 10th level at this point. I don't think it's one level per dungeon level, but you get down here and this is the high level stuff. This is where you're really fighting to the end to get to Belcora and destroy her and thwart her plans to attack the nearby city. And Belcora herself is a ghost who is also a undead sorceress and makes a pretty good combatant for you to face. So overall, I would give this 4 out of 5 skulls. The level design is solid, if not breathtaking. The art inside is really good. The way that they cause you to go in and out of the dungeon to complete quests and kind of keep resetting things and hopefully keeping it from turning into a grind is A+. And so overall, it's good enough that I was going to run it for my group before some things happened. I would give it 4 out of 5 skulls. If you want to see more of these reviews and you're into the video this far, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, even leave us a comment letting us know what you think of this content, and we will catch you next time on the Henchman's Memoirs.